That was really interesting, though. Like her
my
different
dad calls
residencies?
it women's plumbing. Yeah.
Not wrong.
There has never been a more appropriate intro to the broadcast. That voice that you heard was Shireen Ahmed. We have Signa Butler here. Clare Restad is meant to join us. I'm Amy Walsh, and I'm also Dubs' #1 Rhian fan, because today we are graced by Rhian Wilkinson's presence. She was just on the regular pod and now stopped by the broadcast. And I was kind of gushing. I mean, clearly in my title here, #1 Rhian fan, I'm already doing that. But we're really happy to have you here, Rhian. We want to hear all about your Euro experience and what's coming next for you in Wales. But first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I think I took a day off last week. I have a day off next week, and I'm starting to. I can't go straight into break mode, so I'm just starting to come down now, which sounds crazy. But I spent a week after the Euros in Wales, and then I went to the semifinals in Switzerland because I wasn't able to go to the finals. So it's been sort of a nice sort of come down now. So I'm able to start breathing again.
Well, we talked a little bit about it. So that's going to be dropping today for Footy Prime listeners on the main pod. And then this broadcast, we're Wednesday today, will be dropping tomorrow, Thursday. We're going to get into the Euros. Hopefully Clare jumps on, and we're going to get into WAFCON and Esther Okoronkwo's involvement and how influential she was. And we're going to get into NSL the week that was, week 15. And then also kind of putting NSL in the shop window. But before we do that, Rhi, you talked a little bit about the state of the game in Wales and then what you did kind of the week after the tournament. And you mentioned the clear gulf that remains between the top 6 sides. So if you say like England, France, Germany, the Dutch, Spain, and Sweden, and everybody else, you alluded to the fact that you think Wales is in that group. What do you think needs to be done for your own team? Kind of for this next cycle, but just in general, so that there's more parity across the board, because those teams remain dominant.
Yeah, they do, and it's great. So they're fully professionalized. There's this environment around them now that the expectation is success, and that is great, right? England winning again, a great tournament. Lots could have gone in different directions with those 6, but not from those newer teams. Like it is a big gap. I hope very much that the tournament expands. I think we saw the importance of visibility. I spoke about it in one of my press conferences that we can't forget that some of these countries, like they always qualify. That is what they qualify. They push. They get into quarterfinals, semifinals, finals of World Cups. That is, Europe is strong and it's healthy in that top end. But we can't forget that the health of women's football actually lies underneath that.
Yeah.
And so we're back into Nations League B. There's a big group of Nations League B teams that are like right on the cusp of big tournaments and of Nations League A. And then there's a group that are well off of it. And that is where some attention we can't forget about that by being distracted by what the top end looks like, which is amazing. We need that. But equally, the health of the whole sport lies further down the food chain. So I do hope it grows, because I think Wales, this was our first major tournament. We needed to dip our toe in the ocean, is what I've been saying, because there is a massive gap. You can talk about it all you want. We already knew that we weren't physically at the same level as some of the top teams, but to feel it and to see it on display is completely different. And now that will lead to a really essential review, a critical assessment of where we're at, a gap analysis, and we can start working to close those. That only happens when you're on the world stage, right? And so I do think it needs to just be expanded a little bit. Not for for financial revenue. I hope it helps them very much, but more importantly for the visibility and for those smaller nations that just get little glimpses of it. And this is where, okay, what's the next 6 then? So we've got the top group, and then we've got the next group, and that's where I think Wales can be pushing and should be pushing to always be in.
It should be mentioned too that of those top 6 sides that I mentioned, 3 were in your group. So you were dealt a pretty difficult hand. But as you got eliminated in your press conference after that loss to England, a heavy one. That is, you as a call to action.
We know.
Well, I didn't want to rub it in. Didn't even say the score, Rhian. Lay off me. But a call to action to Wales. And you mentioned some actionable steps that could be taken. But there were 5 players on your team that were unattached or didn't have a contract, and that was a common theme back in our day. I mean, less so as you played in NWSL and you played, or did you ever play in WPS, Rhi, or only in NWSL?
I played in Norway.
Right, and then in Norway with D. So you experienced that. Do you think? And then obviously you have ties. You were head of football, as I like to tease you, for the development of the pathway for Project 8, and then NSL. Are you giving them a little bit of a nudge to say, hey, there's a great domestic pro league in Canada happening that might be a great place to ply your trade?
Well, we have Josie Longhurst with the Rise already. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's not my players aren't in the shop window. And, we've got my third keeper, Poppy. I've been trying to tell I tell people, but they look at a small nation. And this is where, yes, Canada is very different than Wales, but it's the same. It's so frustrating to me. I'm like, just people decide where you're from is is the story. Like, oh, you play for Wales, but it's just Wales. And so they value you differently. And it drives me wild. But that's also my job, is to make sure that my players are highlighted, and I talk about them, and I show that, the ones that do get attention have to be so superior. Like, I have a 38-year-old who scored against France and who assisted against England, who plays in the NWSL, who is just an anomaly in all ways. Like, Jess is incredible. And I have a few of those players. So I've got this group I'm trying to develop, who need to be in the best environments, who want to show that they're the Jess Fishlock, the next generation. And no one pays attention to them until they're here. Mm-hmm. Jess is getting the credit she deserves at 38. You miss that boat. Like, thank God Seattle had that sort of, vision, or that scouting network, to look outside of the obvious. That's what we ask, because you see it across in Switzerland. You see some of these players that are coming through, so exciting. The same for Poland. There's a group of players coming through now that we're just going to miss because we just look for the obvious. And that's where women's football is still developing. The scouting network is non-existent, I would say.
I just wanted to add one thing that I don't know if it got highlighted on the side of the pond, but for all the brown girlies out there, Safia Middleton Patel was the first South Asian to play in the Senior Women's Euros. Wow. It's historically plays for free. So that's something that is part of Manchester United, but something that was floating around in the circles that I'm part of, which is a really, really big deal to have somebody, because as much as we want to grow football, even in the UK, I mean, if you look at the Lionesses, other than the 5 black players that they have, it's largely white. And we've been spoiled in Canada. Like, our team has actually been super diverse for a very long time, but it's not like that in other places. So just shout out to Wales for having created history as well from that point of view.
I just want to, we can't look at the Lionesses. We are not a diverse team. I'm so proud of Saf, who's really a top player, who again is not seeing the pitch at Man U. Sometimes what's right in front of you is hard to see. So looking forward to seeing her trajectory, but also to, Wales has not got a huge immigrant population, but we are not a singularly white country either. And that is what our team really, other than Saf, is not showing. So a good reminder that, again, it is a sport of the privileged still. And we need to make sure that it is as broad and casting a big a net as possible. It should be for everyone, the sport, and it doesn't always look like that in lineups.
Yeah, I point at the Lionesses with critique because I'm salty. So that's why I'm doing that.
Who doesn't love a salty Shireen?
A salty Shireen, a salty East Coaster. Unrelated to that question, but I also a question for Rhian. I'm wondering where you fall in the, as a coach and somebody who's developing players, where you fall in having your players with top clubs but not getting time, or getting playing time at another maybe like another league that maybe doesn't have the same reputation as the WSL.
Yeah, I think players need to be playing, and my take is that everyone needs to do the grunt work. So yeah, if it takes you a year to sort of bed into some, and you're getting little bits of minutes, but to be comfortable just sitting on the bench I don't care where you're at. Like, it's just, you're not improving. And that's been a problem for my team. But I do think this is where, again, we're Canadian, right? And we have this perspective because we're Canadian, that it doesn't matter what team you play for if you don't play. Now there's a certain level that we can't have you drop to, because I have had players that are in semi-professional environments that are playing, but they're only training twice a week. I'm like, well, I need you fully training, like there's different discussions to be had. But I think we've seen leagues like the USL, the NSL, these leagues that are right sort of under the very, very top that are now and the championship under the WSL that are producing players, and they should produce. That's where minutes are had. Like, not, it's just right team for the right player at the right moment. And that's where I'm so excited for the NSL, because a lot of our players, if you are not Canadian or not from a smaller nation, you don't understand. A lot of our players can go play in the biggest clubs in the world, but if they don't play because they're Canadian, then it doesn't matter. They need to play. And that's what we're seeing with the performances from the NSL. Like, I always think it's interesting. Our best players are not always making team of the week. It's a competitive league right from the start. And we're seeing these incredible athletes. Like, I loved watching the finals of the African Cup of Nations, being like, she's playing in Canada. Like,
Yeah,
that's what it's about. And that's straight from year one. I think the NSL is ahead of schedule. I'm so impressed. I really enjoy watching those games and talking to people that are playing in it, and seeing so many of my youth players who I thought were just top get an opportunity. Because where have they been? They've been out in the winds. And now I just saw Julianne Valorant sign for Halifax. Like, these are the women that just have tried. They've given it a go. And they need to come back to show their worth. So I'm so grateful for leagues like the NSL, but the championship, like, they're there and they're competitive, and they're providing opportunities for players that maybe aren't getting the minutes they might deserve in the top leagues.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you about, because I'm cognizant of the fact that you were on the main pod already at noon, and then we've kept you on here. So I want to kind of everybody's general impression, maybe really quick, about the Euros, about the tournament, about the quality of play, about England. Sarina Wiegman, I mean, I think 5 finals and 5 major tournaments and back-to-back Euro wins. Like, it's incredible. But then also England, seemingly against all odds, knockouts, they only led for 5 minutes total. Like, just these crazy stats, right? But just, Rhian, I guess starting with you, obviously your own experience living that, guiding a team to its historic first major tournament. But then just your sense and what you took away from the tournament as a whole.
We were in Nations League A, and we lost by 1 goal to Italy away. They beat us 4-1 at home. We tied Sweden twice. Like, we're getting close, but tournaments are 6 games.
Yeah.
3 are guaranteed, and then 3 as you go through, which is a whole new level of play and of physical limitations. I think it's great for the women's game. You saw, like, everything going to extra time and penalties, and whatever you think about the penalties, these women ran their legs off. I think the standard of play was amazing. Sarina knows what she's doing. I think, like, the number of people that have given me opinion, and I have been given a bit like, oh, she should do some. The woman is a winner. Like, take whatever you want and have your opinion. But they would have, like, destroyed her if she hadn't won. And you're like, well, what's the difference, right, between winning and losing in penalties?
Yeah, the fine margins.
What an incredible. I was working in England as an assistant coach in 2001, and my goal was to work for Sarina. I think she's been on my radar as this top female example, and I think she's winner. It doesn't matter if you agree with her tactics. It doesn't matter. She's a winner. Like, she doesn't need your opinion. And I love that she just does things her way. And with all the criticism and outside noise, like, she just is doing it, and she'll go down doing it her way if she's not to win. I love that about her. I think we've seen a lot of strong female coaches as well. The Spanish coach, Montserrat, I think. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but that was really nice to see. The coach for Poland as well. I mean, there's a number of female coaches, which I think is important. We were at 20% potentially. I think you can look at the NSL, you can look at the NWSL, you can look at all the leagues around the world, and it's still lacking. So it's nice to see that the numbers are coming up in the Euros. I think that it's showing. By the way, I made a joke with a group of male colleagues that was like, the reason women can't coach men is because our eyes move slower, and no one said anything. And I thought, well, that's it, right? Like, they actually think there's
right.
Oh, anyway, we just need reminding sometimes where we're at. And then Serena is like the epitome. And I think that team, like, people are not going to like you. Not everyone likes you, as a head coach and as a fan base. And I love the example she sets in trying to be humane and good and do the right thing, while leading in her distinct style and with her value sets. And I think that and to win it, I'm not saying Montserrat with Spain's not, I don't know her well enough, but I just think Serena is probably that shining beacon for so many like me in the women's game. That's what I'll take away from it. I'm grateful for her.
But it remains like you make that kind of joke to a room full of men, because when you're doing your coaching badges with the Welsh FA, you are sometimes the only woman in that room, right? That's the reality still for women who want to coach at a really high level.
Yeah, that my under 19 coach is also on the course with me on my pro license. And actually the pro license is one of the better ones, because these guys, as long as you know your stuff, they don't care. They don't care where you come from, what level you play at. They just want to have a good football discussion. But coming up through B and A is tiring. And I'm now working a little bit in coaching it. I'm trying to like get around it. And that's the biggest thing that women say is like, they're intimidated by the men. And I'm like, what do the men know about coaching women? Like, women are, I always think, do you think the women will enjoy it if you never allow them time to chat? And they're like, oh my God, imagine. And I'm like, well, men don't know that. Like, because boys just want to get on the ball and girls want to have a little debrief. You actually have to give them limits, because otherwise they'll debrief for the whole session. Like,
sounds like a broadcast, Rhian.
Well, I find it intriguing that like men are still seen as the most capable to coach women because they understand tactics better. What do they like? What? And women are different. Like, we learn differently. We need to see it differently. Because
our eyes move slower.
Because our eyes just cannot keep up with the ball.
It's hard. It's hard work.
Anyway, okay. I do think there's a change here, and I'm so grateful for all of us women on this, just talking about it, because there's so much work to be done. And we look at these 6 top teams, right? Like the best of the best at the Euros or the World Cup. And I love it. We're pushing the standards of the game to the point where how I say it to men, I'm like, have you ever watched footage of the men from like 1960 or 70? Just go back, watch, and see how much the game has changed from then till now. And then just look at the timeline of the women's game and how long we've been playing. And the trajectory is like that. Like, the men have been gradually getting better. Like, women it's skyrocketing, and that gives some perspective. And that's where we just have to remember that we have to promote the top end of the game, but the bottom, this like bigger piece of the pond, like Canada's up there. We're a top nation. But we know this is what the NSL is about. Like, we still have grassroots work to be done to make sure that our young people are given the same opportunities. But equally, our coaches. Where are our coaches? Where are they?
That's true. Okay, I'm cognizant of the time. We're going to let you go, but I wanted to show you, just as a little bit premature, but we're going to dive into NSL Week 15 in a bit. But you mentioned when I showed this graphic before we pressed the record button that you've coached a handful of these players. So for people who are on audio only, this is our best 11 of Week 15. We've got Karpenko in goal. We've got, again, a lot of center backs across our back line. So just
Shannon as left back's exciting.
Yeah, don't add us. We've taken some liberties with our 11 here. So we've got from right to left, Scott, Leslie, Harris, Shannon Weller, And we've got Hess, Maggie Doherty-Howard, and Sam Chang in our midfield, and Abdu, Pridham, and Hunter across the front. Apologies for not saying the clubs, but I'm trying to be concise here. So Rhian, dive in here to our best 11.
Yeah, well, it's great to see Anna there. I think she's one of these young keepers, obviously incredibly intelligent woman, and had a wonderful education, but played for me. So great to see. There's a lot of my youth players. Obviously, I played with Shannon, so go Shannon. Annika Leslie, Olivia Scott, and then Sam Chang and Latif Abdu all played for me, which is what this is about, right? This is what the NSL is about. These young players who were clearly superstars in the making. And I looked at them and I'm like, God, I hope they find somewhere to play. Or I hope they have another passport. So this is really, really cool to see that they're now. I have a story about Latif Abdu because when I was her youth coach and I was making them run fitness. And she's like, well, why don't you run fitness? Like just telling us to run. She said it in a funny way. Like, but I was like, And I said, I will run fitness with you, but what happens when I beat you? And she was like, no, never mind. So I ran fitness that day. So I'm not sure if she liked me better or worse after that. But
did you end up bedding her? Is the important information.
Sure. But I didn't do all the pre. That was the thing. They'd had the session. I was just doing the end bit. So
right.
I did have an unfair advantage. And it was very close to retirement. So it wouldn't have done it now. But love Latifa. Always challenging, but in the right way. So that was good to see them on there. Deserved.
That Shireen and Sigs, before we let Rhi go, did you have any other questions for?
No, but I would say, like, just from the Euro, like just the last sort of, if we touch on the Euro just for like another second, what I found was, and I've said this a couple times in the broadcast, is scary, is the other European nations. So like outside of what Amy's talking about, top 6, those nations are now, and I would say surpassing Canada in terms of the speed of play, the decision-making, the technical ability, sometimes the depth on the rosters, and just to see a team like Italy, who wasn't on anybody's radar, do as well as they did in the tournament, a team like Switzerland also doing well, just to name 2. I just thought the speed of play of Euro was like unreal, and it makes me look forward to 2027 in the World Cup and what we're going to see there.
Yeah, Canada's in an interesting spot. I think it will be good for them. We've maybe plateaued a bit, and that happens. And now with Casey Stoney at the helm, I'm sure we'll push on, and expectations go up as the other nations push standards. But I agree, Italy was fantastic. France underwhelms always, but they're right up there. When they get it right, they're going to be nonstop. I mean, I thought they were
unreal during the tournament, though.
But it's been France for like 2 decades. Like they walk out for the semis. I remember it was in Nasib in 2015 quarterfinals against Germany. It should have been the final, and she was technically perfect. And they crash out. Like it's France. They crash out. Just wanted to say my favorite entire moment of the Euros is when Rhian doesn't listen to security and climbs over them into the stands, which was actually my favorite thing. So security's freaking out, but that was so wonderful. And just on the idea of the growth, people think of the big 6 in Europe and just kind of forget the outlying countries. They forget, like Ireland's had Katie McCabe for a long time. Like, you know what I mean? So there's other smaller nations in Europe that are burgeoning, and we also see it in hockey. It's not like when there's more attention and more investment in women's sports, like holistically, you'll see that improvement. And there's a bunch of incredible footballers there. And it's so wonderful to hear you say that part of your role, and you take very seriously, is to amplify those players, for the better of Welsh football, for the global community. It's just very refreshing to see that. And it's nice to hear, because one of the coolest things about NSL is the amount of international players that come over to expand the game. Hopefully the Canadian players can take some of those tricks and that speed. To Sig's point, I agree with Signa. I have to say it at least 5 times during the show. But I just think that will embolden it, and the growth of women's football makes it more competitive by logic and virtue. So but there's elements of that, the human element and the social, like the sociological side of sport, where you're helping grow humans as well. Okay, that sounds so weird. It sounds like they're plants, but you know what I
Like
mean?
Cabbage Patch Kids?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So just you're growing them as players and individuals because, you know, women's footballers in smaller nations won't continue to be like, they won't stop being overlooked. And that's our job as media and your job in coaching to be able to help that along. So I'm excited that you're there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I hope I've been very clear about this, but the Welsh media, the world media, we're so good. And what I mean by that is like they held and they should hold us to account, me, my team, everyone, but they also understood the bigger picture and the journey. And I was so grateful for that because I think we should be disappointed by the results because we want to be confident. We want to go into those games believing, which means it hurts more, but we're on a much bigger trajectory and journey. So I thought the media did a good job in terms of just explaining to the general population what they were seeing and celebrating the goals with us. Like outside of Wales, people were like, what the hell? You know, like we're celebrating a 4-1 loss because that goal, our first goal in a major tournament. And then against England, the first, meaningful goal against England in 45 years. Like these are steps. Is it where we want to be? No, we're not there yet. And sorry, I'm going to take my own time, but something you just said, I just read a really good article about the women's game and how it's been very reliant on singular superstars. And I do think that's probably where Canada's plateaued. Like for a long time, we had Christine Sinclair who masked some of the maybe deficiencies of me, my team. Like we were an okay team with a superstar. Mm-hmm. Wales also has a 38-year-old superstar who's, look at the end of her career of some whatever, whenever she decides to step away. You've seen that in other countries as well. And this was probably the first tournament. This is what the article pointed out. And it's so true. The first tournament where these were team performances. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exciting for the game that we're now, and that you can look back historically at the top teams and they almost always had a superstar. And they pointed out like a Birgit Prince and Abby Wambach, like these players that just sort of like papered over maybe gaps in the team. And now gaps are exploited because it has to be the full 11 plus the depth. And that is where it's probably quite normal that Canada has had a bit of a pause in its growth because it's got to fill in for maybe things that were lacking when we had a superstar that sort of got things done even when poor performances happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it hid the warts like in players like me. But I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, Rhian, because I read the same one. It was Michael Cox for The Athletic.
Was it?
Okay. He said it was an extension of the 2023 World Cup that is becoming more systemized, less individualistic with each passing tournament. Yeah, and I would agree with that. And I think the team that was emblematic of that was Germany in this movement. Mm-hmm. Where, I mean, obviously had brand and you have individuals who are capable of that brilliance on the day. But like as a team, the resilience and how they stuck together and tactically adapted and adjusted, and their fitness was like out of this world, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think they really represented that shift in the women's game. But we will leave it there for you, Rhian. Thank you so much for giving us all of this time. And I just wanted to say, and I said at the end of the last one, but we're so proud of you. And I think that the work that you continue to do is being recognized in the world game, and for being like my friend and my teammate and kind of being in the trenches with me early on, a lot of these Canadian players, like for you to continue to blaze the trail for other women coaches, but be that calling card where you're forthright and you're humble and you're held to account and you don't shy away from it. Like we're really, really proud of you and keep at it.
You're good for my ego. Oh, thank you guys. We're all in this together, right?
Look, number one Rhian fan.
I know my mom agrees.
Thanks, friend.
Take care, you guys.
Bye.
I don't know how to leave, so I'm gonna stay.
I can boot you out if you want. You want me to bump you out? Remove from stage. There she's gone.
I was taking notes while she was talking, and I just pulled up the article names that you were talking about, and that's such an interesting point, and also maybe a bit of the fault of the media that are so keen to define a superstar. We've already had discussions in Canadian media. Is Olivia is Olivia Smith the new Sinky? And I'm like, no, she's the Olivia Smith. But like,
but ad nauseum, it's because there was a Christine Sinclair,
Yes.
it has to be, okay, who's next? And in so
And
doing, you overlook the next crop of talent, but you also maybe, as Rhian was saying, you kind of smooth over, or you're hiding maybe issues systemically with the development in Canada and with that entirety of that roster.
And I think one of the things, if we're talking about the Euros as an example, Germany's a great example of that, because we had like Blackstenius, as well, you know, previously Celia Sasic used to play for them. Nadine Anger was one of those standouts for those teams historically, but they've developed as a system. And like, this is going to could be a hot take, but I would rather Canada develop equally as a team as opposed to have one superstar, because as Signa said, we're not going to win on the global stage with one person on a pitch. It's going to have to be everybody, like otters. You know, when rough waters, otters all hold hands, and that's why they hold hands.
Yes, like it's one of my favorite things on Instagram, where it's like the mom and the little baby otter, and they're holding hands, or like the partners.
And they like, I understood. At first I was just like, otters are so cute. No, there's an intentional purpose. They hold each other to get through the rough waters, but they all advance to where they need to go together. So like, I think that's, as opposed to one beaver who's like out there doing its own thing. We need to be otters, not beavers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Like this is like the nature of things and the broadcast.
I know.
Like worlds colliding.
Mashup.
We need David Suzuki up in here, because I've been watching reels about him lately. He's coming up in my algorithm. So yeah, like I love what she said, and that's that analysis about the speed and the stuff. And like Rhian said, Casey Stoney coming on board might bring a little bit of that perspective. But also, just to get back on the Euros, or something I wanted to talk about that we didn't, was the side of the Euros that was dark. That was, and we talked about it last week about the racism piece, but coming out of it, I think there's been a lot of reflection. I just wrote an article for CBC Sports, and I've been contacted already from Europe, from Australia, and from the United States, just for the perspective, because one of the uncomfortable things is, as we sit here in the show and talk about growing women's sports, we need to address and keep talking about curbing misogyny and racism in the online abuse that happens to players. Because unfortunately, as the WNBA has shown us, when you grow a community, you get bad apples in there. But if this problem is systemic, it doesn't matter if it's just one apple. It's all of it. So that was something that was like not great. But on the whole, like being able to watch, like me being frustrated that WAFCON and the Euros, the women's Euros, are on at the same time, was amazing. I always want to be there. I can't keep up with NSL matches and the African Championship and the Euros, because there's too much soccer on. I love it.
And the Women's Copa America, where the conditions were horrific.
Tara, I didn't watch any of Copa. Unfortunately, I didn't have access to it on TV. But I think that
Shireen did write that article, and she is in demand. That's Shireen's ringtone that we can hear.
No, I'm saying it resonated with people, because it's not the nicest thing to talk about.
But it's important to talk about it. And I think that you bringing it to light in the way that you do in your unique Shireen way, it has a way of kind of bringing everybody together to start to address it, which is really important, to shine a light on it, right? Because you even saw it, I think, with, as you mentioned in your article, I think it was the royal family, the king, I think prior to the final, was wishing the Lionesses luck. And Michelle Adjumang was nowhere to be found in the photo. So it's this erasure, the young player of the tournament, this hero for the Lionesses.
And she's largely why they're there. She scored the 2 goals she scored in the quarter and semis are the reason they're there. It was just such a blatant, and a friend of mine, Liz Murray Ward, who I quoted, also brought up, it was on her Instagram story, so I wasn't able to capture it. There was a reporter for Sky Sports who didn't mention her at all in his sideline reporting. How can you not mention her when you're doing an overview of a match? Like, that is unprofessional. It's bad practice. Like, but it's also so clear when you do it twice, and it happened twice. So I was watching all this and following on social media, and no one actually formally wrote about it, because I wanted to include it in my article. But the only thing I found was a thread on Reddit, and my editor is very particular that Reddit threads don't qualify. I don't know why. I don't know why he feels that way. I mean, Reddit is where we all go. But it was noted, and
looks of sarcasm across our faces.
Across our faces. There's a lot of talk in racialized football circles, and shout out to Complex and Versus, two particular football places that I follow and really appreciate. They talk about this stuff, and in Canada, Derby does the same. They dig into things in a critical lens, and I think we need to continue to do that as women's football grows. We have to continue to be critical in the ways that we need to be to help it grow properly.
Yes, for sure. So you mentioned the Women's African Cup of Nations, so 2024, hosts Morocco. So they staged an exhilarating tournament, and it concluded with Nigeria's come from behind 3-2 victory versus the hosts this past Saturday. And take a bow, Esther Okoronkwo, because she played a very, very important role for Nigeria. And she was the architect of the 5-0 drubbing of Zambia, 2 assists, and she scored herself, and then came on in the final. And then scored from the penalty spot, I believe. And then, anyway, her set piece delivery, her creativity, that masterful left foot that we've seen Sigs in NSL. This is putting NSL in the shop window, as we previously alluded to, for the entire footballing world to see. Is it not?
I would agree with that. And also, I would also agree with the fact that what we were talked about earlier is that Esther Okoronkwo is playing not 90 minutes game in and game out, but she starts every match. She plays over 70 minutes every game. In previous tournaments with Nigeria, and I'd have to go back to my notes. They are here. She was at the World Cup. I don't know whether she had any time at the World Cup, but she was a substitute in the 2020 Paris Olympics for Nigeria. So the fact that she's been given that faith, and I don't know whether it's the fact that she's been given this new lease on life with Marko Milanovic's side with AFC Toronto. Nice partnership that she's formed up front with Kaylee Hunter. But just the confidence that she has, that she's able to go back for country and put in that kind of effort. I mean, it just shows what kind of player she is, but it also shows the world what kind of player she is. And do other teams come sniffing for Esther? That's what
Yeah,
because she is a goal fiend, and not only scoring bangers, but the service that you mentioned there, Amy, too. So I think if you're looking for a straight up 9 or somebody who can play that kind of offensive role for your team, they might be coming for Okoronkwo.
So in the Women's World Cup, and Ames, you can remember back, Esther was not causing the chaos she's causing now, which is amazing because we see growth, we see confidence. I totally agree with that. She was causing a lot of disturbance for everybody else, the other opposing teams on the pitch. My heart broke for Morocco. I love that team. I think the trajectory of where they've gone and how they've supported women's football is really incredible. I cannot stand their coach, and it's really hard for me to accept that. I struggle with it. I do really love some of the players that had a chance to interact with them. I was in Melbourne for this famous press conference that happened. I was in the room when this journalist from the BBC aggressively asked the women's team if they were gay and if they had gay players and what that would be like. That was wild. I'll never forget it. I remember how Gisèle Shabak handled that. I was really happy for her. I was really, really happy to see their moms out there. It's home team, but the heartbreak for the host city. I get excited every time I see aunties or moms or players in hijab for obvious reasons, because they're not there yet on the level. So I loved the joy of Morocco, but it's also Nigeria deserved that win. It was 2-0 at half, and they came back. Also, Chiamaka Nnadozie.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I want an ounce of her confidence. Like, she comes out the way we want keepers to be. She's like, we are going to be brave. I think those were her words on a previous interview along the way. I'm so excited, and I really hope this puts people on Women's African Continental Championship, because it is truly one of the most exciting, and I hope it becomes more expansive. Like right now, there's dominating teams like South Africa. Algeria women used to be up there, but like Morocco and the Super Eagles have won like 10 times. So they've dominated, but like you're seeing pushback and competition, which is good. So I hope it becomes more, but truly just incredible. I'm just so excited. And Asisat Ashwala has been one of my favorite players. Sig, when we built that Lego set together, Asisat was one of the players that we had in that set. Amazing. So just legends on legends. So exciting.
And I was going to say the other thing that was great for the Super Falcons is the money. You know, the prize money, the record prize money that's going to the WAFCON winners now. So that's notable as well for the investment in women's football, not just from like a eyeball perspective, but from a put your money where the mouth is kind of thing.
Yes, but hopefully it gets to the players' mouths, right, is the other thing.
Yes.
Sorry, I misspoke. I said Eagles. Sorry, it's Falcons. You're correct. Sigs.
The men, I think, are the Super Eagles, and the women are the Super Falcons.
Super Falcons.
One of my just favorite names in sports. But going back to Ndozi, named goalkeeper of the tournament and did not concede a goal into the second half of the semifinal versus South Africa, and only 24 years old. So still far away from what is considered to be your prime as a goalkeeper. Okay, friends, we don't have time for anything else, really. We talked very, very briefly about our best 11 for week.
Show the 11 again. Can you show the 11 again?
I will show the 11 again. I will very quickly just do the score roundup. So Vancouver Rise. So they came out of Halifax where they rolled 6-0 and then they won again. They beat the number one team in the league in AFC Toronto 2-1. And we had Ottawa Rapid beating the Tides 1-0. And then the Montreal Roses right off of their press, which has been very successful this year. 2 goals right at the beginning of the game. Sigs, you called that one to beat the Calgary Wild 2-0. So very quickly the standing. So AFC Toronto remains at the top by 1 point over the Roses, but the Roses have a game in hand. And then it's the Ottawa Rapid, Vancouver Rise, Calgary Wild, and Halifax Tides with 10 points in 6th. And I will pull up that 11 one more time. I wanted to very quickly, if you guys want to pick maybe one player, Alli Hess, I thought was absolutely phenomenal for the Roses, whether it was a timely block in the box, chasing down a player, a little kind of casual dummy in her own defensive third to find Felicia Roy, who was filling in for Charlotte Bidbeau and doing outstanding things. And she basically intercepted the ball that led to Boychuk's goal, which doubled their lead. So that she is definitely my star of week 15.
So can we just talk about Abdu's goal in the first minute?
Please.
Yep.
For me, I am going through a slight, I know I do this. I tend to like focus on one thing or at a time. I've just been so impressed. Like there's a dog in her that comes out, the tenacity that I love, the aggression that we love seeing, because sometimes like, that's one of the critiques of the national program, that we don't necessarily have it at that level. It's I've got nothing but like vision for, I'm going to get this ball. That expression, like I'm hungry for the ball, like she's constantly famished in the best ways possible. And I love it. I love watching her play. I think it's invigorating and exciting. And there's a joy on the Roses that with Boychuk and her.
Yes.
It's a silliness and a joy that we're really lucky to see in the NSL. It's the joy. And I
agree.
am so here for it. Like I feel like I'm going to cry just thinking about the players are so happy on the pitch because they work so hard. But, very often being a professional women's athlete it doesn't come with all that joy. So they're taking those moments in their goal celebrations and I'm here for it. Absolutely.
For me, I just to acknowledge, we always like to acknowledge the back line a little bit, but just the nod to the set piece for Ottawa and Liv Scott's second goal of the season, just a nod to that. But the player, and I called that game, the Montreal Calgary game, and Calgary, like they just could not beat that press in the opening minutes. They just, I don't know. Anyway, that was, I'm sure, a headache for Lydia Bedford and her team to concentrate on over the next little while. Maggie Doherty Howard, though, I tell the young kids, if you want to watch a midfielder play, watch the way she moves off the ball. It's amazing. My nod goes to Sam Chang, though.
Yeah.
Brace, breaking out, goal from distance, just looking to goal. I don't know. I feel like because she was injured at the start of the year, it took her a little while to warm up and create that chemistry, but she's been given such a big leadership role within the team. And I think she really stepped up to the plate against AFC Toronto.
Yep. And I really loved the partnership and the combination play between Di Filippo as kind of the focal point of their attack and Peczurski. I think Lisa Peczurski has just kind of flown under the radar because of other outstanding performances like Sam Chang's brace, which, by the way, in her brace and scoring those 2 goals, it was her first ever in the league, and she gets 2 on the day. But yeah, her liveliness, her dynamism, I think is a great kind of foil for a player who's a pretty typical number 9 in Di Filippo, and then Chang just playing underneath them. They've got something cooking in Vancouver, certainly. Okay, friends,
so I have a quick question about that.
Go for it.
I have a really quick question. We're seeing more of the players that we expected, like really good things from, starting to score now. Pickett just scored. They're starting to score. Do you think the players are starting to calm and settle into themselves now that the season is halfway done? Do you think that that's happening? There's a comfort and a confidence building?
I believe so, for sure. I think they're maybe figuring out the rhythm of the league. They're figuring out their place in the side after riding out some ups and downs, and the ebbs and flows that come naturally within the season for your team and the challenges that pose, but also for you and maybe a lot of these players. And Anya Heinemuller Siggs spoke about this at the beginning of the season, just in looking at her roster and looking at where these players came from. So some of them are not only in their first ever professional setup, but a lot of players are coming into a place where they're getting their first kind of chunk of meaningful minutes, where they came from places where they were disregarded and cast aside. So now they're finding their footing. So that was my other thing, is today I wanted mid-season reflections, predictions, and outlandish hot takes. But we don't have time for them. And also Bev Priestman. We didn't talk about that.
Next week. It's still considered the halfway mark next week.
All right, let's do it.
But really quick, for those that don't know, do you want to say the Bev Priestman news?
Yes, you go ahead, Shireen.
Bev has been, sorry, I'm not laughing. That's not a laugh. Bev Priestman has been announced as head coach of a team in New Zealand, and Wellington Phoenix, and was announced yesterday to a lot of excitement. And I scoured some media. Really important. She's very excited. There was a really interesting interview that was given to Agence Presse, AP Media, that she felt, and she reflected, the only thing she said, because she can't speak about it, is she had to get out of Canada. And that actually made me sad, that she felt also for the safety of her son, media was knocking on her door, and for her family, which I totally understand, she felt the need to get out. And I think as time goes on, there'll be more. I wouldn't be surprised if she writes a book, but that's the news. So suspension for her and Jasmine Mander is over. That's all I got.
We mentioned at the end of the other pod, and I said that I wish her the best, and I got my feet held over the coals for saying that. And I said, well, she leaves a lot of, I think, issues in her wake. And the article that unveiled or unearthed, the toxic culture that allegedly she kind of reigned over while she was coach of our women's national team. A lot of players, notably Evelyn Vienne and Gabby Carl, who never really felt like they got a fair shake. I hope
Mimi Alidou,
Olivia Smith, right? Like a lot of players not given, I think, their due. But I hope that Bev Priestman, the person, she's served her year suspension. I think that she deserves to have another shot herself, but that maybe she's learned some lessons as well.
Yeah, and then Mander. I don't think Mander will work again in Canada, but she doesn't have another country to go to at this point.
Yeah.
So what does that look like, right? So anyways, for next week.
Yep, for next week. Okay, thanks, guys. Appreciate it, as always. And thanks to Rhian. And then I thought Clare was coming, but I think she had some house stuff that came up, so we didn't get her take on the Euros.
But mid-season hot takes with Clare?
Oh, yeah. Clare. I mean, when does Clare not have a hot take, right?
Well, I was going to say, it's a good thing our group chat was a little offside yesterday, friend.
Yeah.
Friend. So good thing we didn't bring up any of that in the chat today.
Yes.
I was going to say that Clare herself is that hot take, and I love
That's
it.
it. Yes, she's a fiery redhead hot take. She's a walking hot take. Okay, friends. Until next time, listeners, thank you. Like, subscribe, follow us, whether it's Shireen, Sigs, or myself, and the BroadsCast and Footy Prime. And until next time, keep broadening your horizons. Cheers, everybody, for listening and watching. Bye.
Bye.
And thanks, Rhi. Thanks for stopping by.
Yay.